Imagine for a moment that a prayer you have heard since childhood, perhaps recited in temples, churches, or even whispered in solitude, carries within it mysteries far deeper than what tradition has revealed. Think carefully about this. What if the Our Father, one of the most famous prayers in the world, was not just a simple set of words, but rather a spiritual code, a cosmic formula that links the human soul directly to divine intelligence? What if every phrase, every pause, and every word was designed to awaken powers within you, powers that have been hidden in plain sight? Stay with me until the end of this journey, because the final revelation will not only challenge what you thought you knew, it may transform the way you connect with the divine forever. Welcome to this exploration of ancient wisdom, hidden meanings, and forgotten truths. Together, we will dive into the depth of one of the most repeated, yet least understood prayers in history. The Our Father has been called a universal prayer, but few understand that within its lines lies a map of human consciousness, a key to inner alchemy, and a doorway to a higher state of being. Before we continue, I want to ask you to take a moment. Subscribe to this channel, leave a like, share this video with those who seek deeper truths, and comment below what this prayer has meant to you until today, because what you will discover here may change the way you experience spirituality forever. The truth about the Our Father is not found on the surface. It is not merely a formula of devotion repeated mechanically. Instead, it is a carefully crafted teaching, attributed to Jesus but rooted in much older traditions that blend Jewish mysticism, Eastern spiritual practices, and universal esoteric principles. Scholars such as Rudolf Steiner and Elaine Pagels have suggested that many of the teachings of Jesus were designed not just for the masses, but as initiatory keys for those ready to walk the deeper path of spiritual awakening. Think for a moment about the opening words, "Our Father who art in heaven." On the surface, it sounds like a distant God, far away in the skies. But in esoteric understanding, heaven is not a place above the clouds. It is a state of consciousness. It is the higher mind, the divine dimension within you, where the soul communes directly with the source. Our Father is not meant to describe an external being watching from afar, but the spark of divine intelligence that dwells in every human being. This changes everything. Prayer is no longer a plea to a faraway deity, but a reminder of your intimate connection with the divine essence inside you. Can you see how different this perspective is? Instead of separation, there is unity. Instead of distance, there is presence. The prayer begins by affirming that the divine is not exclusive to one person, one culture, or one religion, but shared by all humanity. Our Father. Not my Father, not your Father, but our. This collective pronoun carries a powerful esoteric truth. All souls are bound by the same origin, all are drops in the same ocean of infinite consciousness. Now reflect. How often do you say these words without stopping to feel their weight? How many times have they been spoken with lips but not with heart? In the Gospel of Matthew, where this prayer is recorded, Jesus warns not to use vain repetitions. That is, prayer should not be mechanical but conscious. The hidden key is awareness. When spoken with understanding, the words open doors. When spoken without it, they remain mere sound. This is where modern seekers must awaken. The prayer is not magic by itself. It becomes powerful when you live its truth. And this is precisely why certain ancient teachers hinted that the Our Father was a condensed initiation, a spiritual exercise disguised as a simple devotion. Consider this. The structure of the prayer mirrors the stages of inner transformation. It begins with recognition of the divine presence, then moves to alignment with divine will, then asks for sustenance, forgiveness, liberation, and protection from destructive forces. Step by step, it guides the human soul from remembrance of its origin to its final liberation. This is not accidental. This is spiritual architecture. Imagine how revolutionary this understanding is. Instead of being a passive act of repeating memorized words, prayer becomes an active practice of consciousness expansion. Every line is like a seed that, when meditated upon, grows into wisdom and inner power. Ask yourself, what would happen if you began to live each phrase of the Our Father as a reality within you, rather than as distant words? What transformation could occur in your thoughts, in your emotions, in the very vibration of your soul? This is only the beginning. Stay with me, because in the next part we will go deeper into the hidden layers of this prayer, uncovering the ancient wisdom embedded in each phrase. The last revelation will be the most powerful of all, the one that ties everything together and reveals the secret no one dares to speak openly. Let us now go deeper into the very structure of the Our Father. Each phrase is like a step on a ladder, guiding us from the earthly self to the higher realms of spirit. This prayer is not a random collection of petitions. It is a sequence, a sacred order, designed to align body, mind, and soul with the divine. If you listen carefully, you will notice that it flows like a mystical journey, beginning in the heavens of consciousness and descending into the daily needs of human life, only to rise again into transcendence. Hallowed be thy name. These words seem simple, but they contain an entire philosophy. The name in ancient traditions was not merely a label, it represented essence, vibration, and identity. In Jewish mysticism, the sacred name of God was considered too holy to pronounce because it carried within it the frequency of creation itself. To hallow the divine name is not just to respect it with words, but to recognize the sanctity of the divine essence in all things. Every particle of the universe vibrates with this holy name. To honor it is to awaken to the reality that the divine lives in all aspects of life. Think about how revolutionary this is. If you truly believe that the divine name is hallowed in all creation, how would you look at others? How would you look at yourself? This is more than a statement of praise. It is a call to live with reverence, to see the sacred everywhere. Ask yourself, do you honor the divine essence within your own heart? Or do you often forget it, distracted by the noise of the world? Reflect on this in the comments, because your insights may inspire someone else on their journey. Thy kingdom come. At first glance, this sounds like a distant hope for the future, as if one day after death, a heavenly kingdom will arrive. But esoteric traditions interpret it differently. The kingdom is not only a place, but also a state of consciousness. The Gospel of Luke records Jesus saying, "The kingdom of God is within you." What an extraordinary statement. This prayer is not a plea for something far away, but an invocation to awaken the divine kingdom already hidden in the soul. It is a reminder that heaven is not a place we go to, but a reality we manifest here and now, when we align with divine will. And this leads us naturally to the next phrase, "Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." This is perhaps the most challenging line for the human ego. It calls us to surrender, not in defeat but in alignment. The will of the divine is not an external command, but the natural flow of universal harmony. When your inner world reflects the balance of heaven, then earth, which represents material life, becomes its mirror. Mystics like Meister Eckhart emphasized that true prayer is not about asking God to bend reality to our desires, but about transforming ourselves until our desires harmonize with divine will. Think about it. How often do you resist life, clinging to your own expectations? What would happen if instead of struggling against the current, you allowed your life to flow in the direction of divine intelligence? This is not passivity. It is profound wisdom. It is the art of living in resonance with the greater whole. Now consider how the prayer shifts at this point. It begins in the realms of heaven, consciousness, and divine will, but then it descends to human needs, acknowledging that spirituality is not only about transcendence, but also about living fully in this world. Give us this day our daily bread. On the surface, it appears as a simple request for food, but deeper traditions reveal another dimension. Bread, in biblical symbolism, often represents knowledge, wisdom, and spiritual sustenance. In mystical Judaism, manna from heaven was not just physical nourishment, but spiritual teaching that sustained the soul. Jesus himself said, "I am the bread of life." So when we pray for daily bread, it is not only about physical survival, but also about the daily infusion of spiritual nourishment. Every day the soul hungers, not just the body. And just as bread sustains the flesh, wisdom sustains the spirit. Think carefully. Are you feeding only your physical needs, or are you also nourishing your soul with truth, with contemplation, with higher knowledge? Notice the progression here. First, we acknowledge the divine, then we align with divine will, and only then do we ask for our needs, both physical and spiritual. This is a profound order. It teaches us that when we place the divine first, the material world falls into its proper place. Scholars such as Karen Armstrong and Houston Smith have pointed out that prayers like this carry a universal archetype appearing in many cultures. Ancient Egyptian hymns, Hindu mantras, and Buddhist sutras often follow the same pattern: recognition of the divine, surrender to cosmic order, and a request for sustenance and guidance. This reveals that the Our Father is not merely a Christian prayer, it is a universal key, one that resonates across civilizations. But there is more. The phrase, "Give us this day," contains another hidden wisdom. It points us to the present moment. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, today. In an age of anxiety and distraction, this reminder is more relevant than ever. True spiritual living is not in regrets of the past or fears of the future, but in the eternal now. The mystic Eckhart Tolle, in our modern age, echoes this timeless teaching. The power is in the present moment. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, how often are you truly present when you pray, when you live, when you breathe? Or are you lost in memories and worries? The Our Father invites us back to presence to receive our bread, our wisdom, our strength today. We have now journeyed halfway into this prayer, and already we see how it weaves heaven and earth, spirit and body, eternal and temporal. Yet, the deeper mysteries still await us, because in the next part, we will explore the lines that touch forgiveness, liberation, and protection from destructive forces, and hidden within them lies the secret of transformation, the secret that has been concealed from ordinary understanding for centuries. Stay with me, for what comes next will unveil truths that can break chains and open doors within you. We now arrive at one of the most transformative parts of the Our Father, a passage that holds both liberation and challenge. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. On the surface, this may sound like a moral lesson, urging us to treat others as we wish to be treated. But when we look through the lens of esoteric wisdom, we find something even more profound. This is a law of reciprocity, a spiritual principle that governs the flow of energy in the universe. Forgiveness is not merely an act of kindness toward another person, it is an alchemical force. To forgive is to release the chains that bind us, not only to the one who has harmed us, but also to the very wound itself. When we hold resentment, it is like drinking poison and expecting the other to suffer. Ancient mystics understood this truth well. Forgiveness is freedom. It untangles the knots of karmic energy and allows the soul to ascend unhindered. But notice the conditional structure of this line. It does not simply say, "Forgive us." It says, "Forgive us as we forgive." This is a mirror principle. The measure of grace you extend to others determines the measure of grace that flows into your life. This is not punishment, but alignment. The energy you project is the energy you receive. Think of the words of the Buddha. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Reflect for a moment. Who in your life do you still need to forgive? Perhaps it is not someone else, but yourself. How many of us walk through life carrying guilt, regret, and shame? This prayer reminds us that divine forgiveness is inseparable from our willingness to forgive, not because God withholds love, but because a closed heart cannot receive it. And here lies a mystical secret. When you truly forgive, you participate in divine creativity. You recreate yourself anew. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is transforming pain into wisdom, wounds into strength, and bitterness into compassion. It is the inner work that allows heaven to manifest on earth within your own soul. From here, the prayer takes us into a darker realm, addressing the challenges of human existence. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. These words have stirred debate among scholars for centuries. Why would a loving God lead anyone into temptation? The deeper understanding lies in the language. In its original Aramaic and Greek, the word translated as temptation can also mean trial or test. In other words, this is not about a God who tricks us, but about the recognition that life itself brings challenges. The prayer is a plea for strength, that we may not be overcome by trials, that we may not fall into the illusions of separation and ego. Evil in mystical traditions is not a red figure with horns, but the distortion of divine energy. It is ignorance, fear, and disconnection from source. To be delivered from evil is to be liberated from illusions that keep us enslaved. It is to awaken to truth. Gnostic texts speak of this as escaping the archons, forces of ignorance that blind the human mind. Eastern philosophies describe it as breaking free from Maya, the veil of illusion. Different cultures, same truth. Spiritual freedom comes when we awaken to reality. Notice how the prayer at this point addresses not only personal needs but also cosmic struggle. It acknowledges the battle between light and shadow, between awareness and ignorance, between love and fear, and it offers a shield. When spoken consciously, these words become not just a request but an invocation of protection, a reminder that the divine presence is always greater than any force of darkness. Pause and think, what are your temptations? Not only in the sense of desire for what is harmful, but also the temptation to remain asleep, to live unconsciously, to repeat the same cycles of pain. What are the illusions that hold you captive? How would your life transform if you asked daily to be delivered from them? Share your reflections in the comments. Your insight may be the key someone else needs. At this stage, we can see the structure of the Our Father more clearly. It begins in heaven, the realm of divine consciousness. It descends to earth, addressing human needs and struggles. It guides us through forgiveness, through trials, through liberation, and soon it will rise again into glory, closing the circle. This pattern is not random. It is the path of the soul: origin, descent, struggle, and return. Mystics across time have seen this same pattern in myths, in rituals, in spiritual practices. The prayer reflects the very journey of life itself. Scholars such as Mircea Eliade noted that prayers and rituals often mirror the hero's journey. The call to the divine, the descent into trials, the transformation through struggle, and the final return to light. The Our Father is no exception. It is a miniature map of the human soul's adventure. Now imagine reciting this prayer not as a routine, but as a conscious journey each time. Imagine feeling yourself ascend, descend, struggle, and rise again with every line. This transforms the prayer into a meditation, an inner pilgrimage. No wonder ancient teachers guarded its deeper meaning so carefully. It was never meant to be just words, but a living path. Yet, the greatest mystery still remains. The prayer closes with a doxology: "For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever." This is more than a conclusion. It is the final revelation, the return to the source, the affirmation of divine eternity. But within this ending lies the hidden key, the most powerful secret of all, one that ties the entire prayer together in a way few have ever spoken about. Stay with me, because in the final part, we will unveil this ultimate mystery. What you are about to discover is the hidden truth that has been overlooked for centuries, a truth that can change the way you understand not only this prayer, but your very purpose in life. We now stand before the closing lines of the Our Father, the words that bring the prayer full circle: "For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever." Many scholars note that this doxology does not appear in the earliest manuscripts of the Gospels, but was added later in Christian liturgy. And yet, whether original or not, its presence is no accident. It holds the final key to unlocking the prayer's deepest meaning. At the beginning of the prayer, we turn our eyes to heaven. Our Father, who art in heaven. We descend into daily life, asking for bread, for forgiveness, for protection. We confront trials and shadows. And now, at the end, we return to the eternal light, affirming the supremacy of the divine. This arc is not only the structure of the prayer, it is the cycle of existence itself: origin, descent, transformation, and return. This is the journey of every soul. The phrase "thine is the kingdom" is more than acknowledgement. It is surrender. It is the recognition that the world we see is not ours to control, but a manifestation of a higher order. The word kingdom here represents not a physical dominion, but the reign of divine harmony that underlies all things. The mystic Jacob Boehmer described creation as a theater where the divine will is continually expressed. To say "thine is the kingdom" is to affirm that all realms, visible and invisible, belong to the source. Thine is the power. This speaks of the divine energy that sustains all existence. Power here is not domination, but life force, the creative spark that breathes galaxies into being and animates your every heartbeat. Modern physics speaks of energy as the fabric of reality. Mystics have always known this, naming it chi, prana, or ruach, the breath of God. When we declare "thine is the power," we acknowledge that all strength, all movement, all vitality is a reflection of that divine current. And then comes "thine is the glory." Glory is the radiance of the divine, the light that shines through creation, the beauty that awakens reverence in the soul. It is the majesty of the stars, the quiet splendor of a sunrise, the spark of love in a human heart. To proclaim that all glory belongs to the divine is to confess that every fragment of beauty we witness is but a mirror of the infinite. Finally, the word forever. This seals the prayer, not in time, but in eternity. It affirms that the truths we have invoked are not temporary, not fleeting, but eternal. The kingdom, the power, and the glory are not passing phenomena. They are the essence of reality itself, unchanging, everlasting. With this word, the circle closes. We return to the eternal, having walked through the trials of earth, only to rise again into the timeless light. But here is the greatest secret, the one hidden in plain sight. This prayer is not merely about God, it is also about you. When you align yourself with the divine, when you awaken the kingdom within, when you allow the power to flow through you, when you reflect the glory in your life, you become the very expression of this prayer. The words are not outside of you, they are within you. The Our Father is not only a conversation with the divine, it is an instruction for becoming divine. Think about it. Our Father means the source of all dwells within us. Hallowed be thy name means we honor the sacred essence in all. Thy kingdom come means we manifest heaven here and now. Thy will be done means we live in harmony with universal order. Give us this day our daily bread means we are nourished in body and spirit. Forgive us as we forgive means we release chains and live in freedom. Lead us not into temptation means we awaken from illusions. Deliver us from evil means we rise above ignorance. And thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory means we return to the eternal source shining with its light. Do you see the pattern? This is not just a prayer, it is a path, a map, a manual for spiritual transformation. It is the entire journey of the soul condensed into a few lines that can be spoken by a child, yet conceal mysteries that can occupy sages for a lifetime. That is why this prayer has endured for centuries. That is why it speaks across cultures and generations. Because its true power lies not in repetition, but in realization. Now pause and imagine, what would happen if every time you prayed the Our Father, you did so consciously, walking the inner path it describes? What if these words became not a ritual, but a lived reality? What would change in your life? What would change in the world if humanity awakened to the truth hidden in this prayer? This is the promise I made at the beginning, to reveal the most powerful secret of all. And here it is. The Our Father is not a prayer you simply recite. It is a prayer you become. When its truth lives within you, your life itself becomes a prayer. Your actions, your words, your very being radiate the presence of the divine. This is the hidden truth that no one tells you. As you carry this understanding forward, remember, you are not separate from the source. The kingdom is within you. The power flows through you. The glory shines as you, forever. So let these words echo in your heart, not as a formula, but as a living truth. Live the prayer. Become the prayer, and in doing so you will discover the eternal reality it points to, the truth about the Our Father that has been waiting all along, not outside of you, but within. Thanks for looking.